Another episode of the Women Writing Intentionally podcast with Jenny Alberti and Tracey Brown. Join us as we talk all things writing and publishing, from insider secrets to our own author journeys. We are committed to providing a safe platform for women to share their stories, knowledge, and truth without fear of judgment, criticism, or betrayal. By coming together in a genuine spirit of collaboration, we provide opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation that benefit all women, both authors and readers alike. Our vision is to help our authors intentionally build an aligned legacy portfolio that supports their mission as a woman, human being, and business owner. So, in this week's episode, we will be talking about our upcoming collaborative book series, the Wounded Women series, and how healing your wounds can actually benefit you as a business owner. So, I'm pretty excited about this topic, aren't you, Jenny?
I am. Yes. I think that it provides a different angle for growing business, and I think that it's important that we talk about it. So
Yeah. So, well, let's dive into that just a little bit more. Why do you think that actually this is something that is really important for us to be talking about, not just as women, but as business owners?
well, I think that in this space that we're in, you know, being entrepreneurs and business owners, we kind of hear the same things over and over again about how to grow your business, right? And by us being in publishing and wanting, women to share their stories and speak their truth and really step into using books as a platform to gain visibility and gain authority, I think that it's important that we actually show, we've talked about this before, actually show them how to use these books to grow their business. And the way that we are doing this, and this particular container and this project, it's going to really open up a whole new way to be able to step into who these women are supposed to be, who they want to be, who they desire to be. And in doing that, they're going to be able to really grow their business in a way that isn't the same ways that they've always been hearing, possibly trying, and it's still not working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of those ways are, like mindset, right? Let's work on our mindset. It's your mindset that's the problem, right? So dive into your mindset. Or, oh, you don't have the right strategy in place, or we have to implement a new strategy. So it's all of those things are great, but they're still, if people can participate in writing in this book series, which probably any woman could, then they also are going to benefit from the healing and the stepping into who they desire to be, which is going to grow their business. So it's a completely different angle. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into the specifics of that.
Yeah, I love that. There are actually two issues there that I really want to touch on that you were just talking about. So, the first one, when you're talking about how, particularly as female entrepreneurs, we often hear a lot of people saying, coaches, but no shade just to coaches. I mean, it's out there in the business world as well. Like, it's your mindset. And there's a lot of gaslighting that comes in with that. Like, if you're not succeeding in business, it's just because you've got a scarcity mindset, or you've got a lack mentality, or, you're struggling with imposter syndrome, or all of these things that bring it back to you being the problem because you're not enough, or you're not doing the things that need to be done in order to help you be successful. And then that goes to the second thing you said about strategy as well, like that you don't have the right strategy because you need my strategy, or you need somebody else's strategy because these are the things. And of course, everybody is telling you that their one strategy is the strategy that you need to suddenly like rocket your business to six figures or beyond. And again, it comes back to these feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome and never actually being enough in business.
Yeah.
And all it really ends up doing is just continuing to exacerbate the problem, because we always feel like we're behind and nothing is ever really good enough. And so going into the second thing that you were talking about showing a different way and how the healing and the transformation can actually give women the opportunity to come at it from a different angle. I think one of the things that we really feel strongly about in this container is that it's not about judgment. It doesn't matter whether you're coming into this container. For example, in the Betrayed book, which is the first book in the series, it doesn't matter if you're coming in to tell your story about a time when you betrayed another woman and what came from that, or if you were the person who was betrayed by somebody else and sharing your story, because really at the end of the day, the story is about how did you turn that around, and how did you find the gift in that, and how did you find the healing and the transformation and the abundance that came from that experience. And so I feel like it is really twisting that thing about not being enough into, well, actually, by healing yourself, by healing these wounds, by allowing yourself to reframe and re-examine and find that inner peace, that inner knowing, that we actually realize that we already have the tools that we need within us to be successful. And that by allowing ourselves to go through the process, as much as actually writing the story itself and sharing it in the world, it's actually going through the transformational journey of re-examining those things as we articulate them in our writing. This is actually so powerful. The publishing it out into the world to inspire other people is almost actually the writing, like the icing on the cake. Right? I mean, that's why people come into these projects, is because they think, hey, I want to become a published author. And that in itself, like, that is a huge goal and it is amazing. But what ends up happening is that once you say, yes, I would love to write and share my story, it's actually about the journey that we go on internally within ourselves that is, I think, the real gift in this. And
I think it's really multi-layered too, right? Because you say yes, and it's like it's a scary thing for most people who are doing it for the first time. Even if you're doing it, for the second or third or fourth or 100th time, it's still kind of a scary thing, because you're still having to be vulnerable about a new subject, right? If you're coming into a author container, you're still being vulnerable about a new subject or a new topic, right? So it's always a little bit scary to say yes, but each time that you do that, it's like you're saying yes to yourself, you're saying yes to what you desire, you're saying yes to the fact that you want to make an impact and inspire others, and you're stepping up every single time, right? So there's that aspect of it. But then when you actually start writing and you start going through the process of talking about these things that could oftentimes be extremely difficult, right? And you write it, and then it gets published, and you get to, essentially release those things. That's another stage and another part in, if you would, like, up leveling, right? Like, for lack of a better term, you're essentially stepping into a next higher version of who you are and who you are wanting to be. But then you have okay, how do I actually leverage this? And how do I actually use this book to grow my business, right? Because a lot of times that's the message that's out there, right? A lot of times it's become a best-selling author and use this book to grow your business, right? Wait, well,
and just like on that point, we see this around a lot. And in fact, we have been part of a number of these books where the selling point is become a best-selling author, build your business. But I have to say, most of the containers I've been in have actually fallen a little bit short when it comes to the showing you how to build your business, and actually showing you how to monetize the book in different ways. And that's one of the things that I have actually really enjoyed about working with you with Quiet and Badass and with Lunar Wisdom, is seeing how the authors have put together their launch lists and then started to create their book funnels, and actually watching them as they are really using that to quite literally make money in their businesses.
Yeah. So, well, it's like that's part of the whole thing, right? It's like, it's why people want to write. That's why they want to create books, whether it's contributing to a multi-author book or it's their own book, right? And even Denise, when we talked to Denise, she talked about the fact that all of the marketing was on her. Like, it wasn't actually on the publishing company, it was on her to market. Which, it's just, all of this is so interconnected, right? Because if you have these wounds, like stepping up and being out there and like showing up and marketing the way that you need to in order for something to happen is almost impossible, right? Unless you really understand what's going on. So, to what you just said about the strategies, right? So that's it. Like, okay, there's strategies. I provide strategy, like actual strategy, step by step. Do this, build your launch list. You're going to get prospects coming in. You're going to get people, right? Okay, cool. And then here, after we've launched, now you have your book funnel. Now you do this, right? That's the strategy part of it. But the thing is that, just like what I just said about Denise and being out there, even if you have these strategies, it doesn't do any good if you can't execute them because you have underlying shit going on, right? So I know my strategy works. I know it works. It's worked for me. I've done it, right? So if I were to provide that strategy to every single author that ever came into either one of our containers or our collective container, and they didn't execute it, there's a reason why, right? There's a reason why they didn't execute it. It's not because it doesn't work. It does work. It's because there's something else going on, right? So some publishers will provide that strategy. Most, as we know, kind of don't, right? But it's a matter of, if you were given that strategy, can you actually execute it, right? So that's what going through this and writing is going to help allow people to do, right? Because the ways that some of that stuff shows up, right? You have fear of failure, right? Like, okay, we wrote the book, but still it's kind of like, well, I don't really want people to read it. Like, I did it, I wrote it, I'm a best-selling author, but I don't really want people to know that I did it, right? Or I don't really want people to go buy it, or I don't, because there's a fear of disapproval, right? From friends or family or strangers, who knows, right? There's this fear of like not being worthy of this book actually generating business and revenue, right? So that could potentially be something from withholding going about executing the strategies, right? And then again, that fear of really being seen is a huge thing. So even if you have this strategy, but you're afraid to really be seen, you're not going to execute it. So it's like all these kind of like unconscious self-sabotaging things that go on, that by going through this container and writing and healing and doing this work, we're kind of able to make those things be less apparent. Not that they're going to go away, but less of an issue, right?
Mm-hmm. One of my favorites is also the fear of success. Because I think that's one we don't talk about a lot. People talk about fear of failure all the time. One of the things we don't talk about is the fear of success, because
Yeah.
when we succeed, it makes us step like right outside our comfort zone, and we're like, oh, holy crap, like what happens if my book actually sells? Like, or what happens if I actually book these clients from my launch list campaign? Then what do I do with them? Like, what happens when I suddenly have to like do all of these calls, or do all of the some of my girls did oracle readings or moonology readings and things like that, and it's like, oh my god, what am I going to do with all of these people? And it's like, it's another part of it is, it's a little bit like the fear of being seen, but it's then that whole, am I ready? Like, can I cope with this level of success? Like, it's the perception of what that of the implications rather than the actual implementation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, then what? Then you're too busy. Then you don't have enough time to do the things that you want to do because you have too many, calls to do or clients to service or whatever, or it makes you too stressed and you want to avoid the stress, or you want to avoid any of that anxiety, or like something for me, to be super honest, is like managing the amount of money. Like, I've been there, and the fear of success and having this money coming in and not actually managing it well, right? Or afraid of having to pay taxes, right? Or the fear of the unknown about what all this new money is going to cause. So it's like subconsciously just kind of like staying where you are because you're comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. I have
Again,
to say, like, I have a lot of friends in the UK that deliberately limit their businesses because if they make over, I think it's about 80,000, 85,000 pounds a year, they have to register for VAT, which is like they have to register for tax, to pay tax as a business. And a lot of them hold their businesses back to keep it under that threshold because they're afraid of paying the tax, or they're afraid of building that in, or they're afraid of what it means and what the implications are. And so, yeah, we hold ourselves back and we self-sabotage all the time. And I find this particularly fascinating because I have a degree in accounting, and that actually does not bother me at all. But the way that it shows up for us, particularly as women, when it comes to, when you say like managing money and stewardship of money, is a huge part of why we play small.
yeah, and well, for me, it's like, I'm not worthy of, like, am I worthy of having that much money to manage in the first place, right? But everything that we just talked about is like not stepping into that next level, not actually becoming the person that you desire to be. And that means, that is different things to different people, but all of those are examples of that. And so being able to heal the wounds that we're healing and we're talking about in these books, it allows us to be able to step into that. It allows us to become these, these badass business owners that are worthy, that are worthy of everything that we desire. And that these generational wounds that have been passed down, they don't need to dictate and rule our reality.
Yeah. And I mean, for those who are a little bit uncertain about what wounds we're talking about, we're specifically talking about, some people call them the Trinity wounds, because generally we talk about the three: the sister wound, the mother wound, and the witch wound. Which, if you've been following our podcast for a while, you'll have heard us talk about these in past episodes. But the way that they show up for women are quite often in the ways that we collaborate or don't trust collaboration with other women, the way that we feel like there's not enough pie to go around, and that it's like the whole dog eat dog thing. It's me or someone else, and you've either got to climb over them on the ladder to get somewhere, or you've got to throw somebody else under the bus that, you get what you're entitled to. It's also like Jenny was saying earlier, the fear of being seen and the visibility, because it wasn't safe for women to be seen because you're putting yourself in the firing line. But it's also the fear of speaking our truth, because when we say what we believe, when we share our knowledge and our wisdom, if it doesn't fit with the way that society expects us to show up in the world or the things that we're supposed to do, again, it puts us in a situation where we can be criticized, or we can be judged, or we can even be punished for that. And so it traditionally hasn't been safe for women to step up and do those things. And these wounds do come down through the generations. But the other one that we are also touching on is the healer wound. And this goes directly to what Jenny was saying about the worthiness and the feeling of worth or lack of worth to either handle money or even to charge. Because the healer wound in particular, if you are a woman who in any way, shape or form works with anything in the realms of spirituality, or even like helping other people from a holistic or a health perspective or things like that, the belief has often been that women should give away their services for free. Like, if you care about people, you shouldn't be charging for that. Right? Now, and this goes back to things like, midwives and doulas giving, like just helping and doing the things, whereas we don't question the fact that doctors should get paid, like particularly like male doctors should be paid for their services. Women, nurses and midwives and doulas and things like that should just give their services away, because they should care about women enough to just help them. Or whatever it is, if we want to get into an argument about patriarchy, we could do that, but that's not really why we're here today. So the healer wound shows up for so many women in that lack of worth around their charging, feeling like they either have to charge rock bottom prices, which usually ends up being a race to the bottom, because we want to be affordable, because we want to be accessible, because we want to help as many people as possible. And it comes from a really good place. Like, it comes from a really caring intention. But let's be honest, charging $5 for a tarot reading doesn't pay the bills. So we've got to be, or like charging $15 or $20 an hour for coaching or whatever it is doesn't pay the bills. So we need to be more realistic about what it is that we need as women to survive as well, to pay our bills, and charge accordingly to what we are, like what our skill sets are, what the value of what we are offering is, because it's not just about, well, we should just give it away. And so this is what Jenny is saying here, is that the women who are going to step into the Wounded Women series are the women who are ready to deal with and work through the sister wound and the mother wound and the witch wound and the healer wound, and actually explore and examine them and reframe those beliefs so that they can work through fear of charging or fear of success, fear of failure, all of those things that are holding us back as business women. So whether you specifically work in an industry, whether you work with the sister wound or the mother wound as an actual career choice, that's one thing. But the thing is, as Jenny said earlier when we started, any woman could actually write a chapter in this book, because we have all experienced these wounds, and these wounds show up for us in so many different ways that do affect our businesses and do affect our ability to make and hold money, for a start. Not to mention the way that we become visible in our businesses, or the way that we speak our message and share our truth and things like that. So I think it's really important to understand that sharing your story as a part of Wounded Women is actually just a small part of it, because the benefit of being able to come into this container and really allow yourself to step into the wounds and really work through them is that ultimately what it gives you is that ability. Like, for example, let's talk about betrayed for a second and healing the sister wound. The benefit of healing the sister wound is that it will then allow you to develop strong collaborative relationships with other women that perhaps you have felt like you've had to hold yourself back from before, because you have that renewed sense of trust and faith. You're not afraid of somebody stealing your ideas and passing them off as their own, because these are things that we have learned. I can't even tell you the number of women I see on social media saying, oh my goodness, I've got somebody who, took my course and is now basically, like, has taken my social posts word for word and reposting them as their own content, or has taken my whole course. And Denise Duffield-Thomas, who was here with us a couple of weeks ago, has had that happen to her as well. People who've signed up to her Money Bootcamp course and who have then basically like ripped off the content and resold it as their own course. And, obviously as business women, like, this can really cut, because of course, like, if that's somebody stealing our livelihood, feels like they're literally taking money, off our table, right? But as we work through the wounds and as we examine them and look at them from different angles and different perspectives, sometimes the gift in that is actually recognizing where and how we can be more discerning in the relationships that we choose to cultivate. It's becoming more aware of red flags and things that are of concern to us, or that indicate to us that people might not be a good fit for us, and breaking toxic friendship cycles. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, Jen, but in high school, a lot of my female friendships quite often tended to be with the wounded birds, so to speak, like, who had dramas of their own. And because I am a nurturing personality and a people pleaser, I would give and give and give, and that was what they needed. But it was like the concept of, like, you can't fill a bucket with a hole in it, right? Like, you can't fill the void. And for them, because they hadn't healed their stuff, it didn't matter how much I was pouring into it. It was never enough for them. But also, like, it was mutually toxic, right? Because I was giving and they couldn't actually ever receive because they weren't healed themselves. And so then it created issues for me too, like trust issues and whatever else. So what I'm saying here is, like, this is the opportunity for us to be able to start doing our own healing, so that we can start breaking those cycles as we move forward. And sometimes that looks like boundaries, and sometimes that looks like all different kinds of things. So, yes.
Well, what you just said about the collaboration, like, look at you and I, right? Like, I think one of the things that I told you to begin with was like, I don't trust anybody, like, just so you know, like.
Yeah, I remember that. I think you said it more than once.
I wanted to make sure you understood. Yeah. Um, so, but like, look at us now. This is like 4 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
4
And
months doing the podcast, I would just like to say, just 4 months doing the podcast. It's been longer than that.
Yes, but the point being is that, like, look at what we are actually creating, because, well, like, obviously I've been able to work through some of those trust issues, right? Because I do have plenty of stories to go inside of Betrayed. But we wouldn't be where we are right now had I not been able to do that, right? So I'm an example of having these wounds, working on these wounds, finding a collaboration, finding a collaboration, right? And then growing my business, growing a business with you because of it, right? So, like, we are doing what we are talking about. We are practicing.
And I have to say, like, for those of you who maybe don't know us very well or haven't known us for very long, the most hilarious part of this is actually that Betrayed is actually one of the things that brought us together and inspired us to actually collaborate, and inspired a whole raft of things that we're doing together, because I was going through something earlier this year, and in a relation, like in a friendship, business, working relationship that I had, and it was very much the epitome of what we are talking about. And Jenny and I were working together on Quiet and Badass, and we were sharing our experiences of like what I was going through and some things Jenny was going through as well. And I'm sure I've told this story before about how it was a bit of a throwaway comment. I was like, oh, ha ha ha, we should write a book called Betrayed, the sister wounds that broke our hearts, but turned into opportunities for healing, growth, and abundance. And it was actually Jenny that was like, we should actually write that book. we should do it together. And that was like, for us, we are like living this whole collaborative thing as we've been healing our wounds, and we've been doing a lot of that work on our own, but we've also been doing some of that work together as well. And it's incredibly empowering, I have to say, to be able to collaborate with somebody that, Jenny was saying just a minute ago that she had, she pointed out to me lots of times she didn't trust people, just to make sure that I knew. But like, we have an incredible level of trust in our, in our relationship, and that we are, super excited about all of the things that we're going to be creating, like all of the books, not just the Wounded Women series, but other books that we have lined up for after Wounded Women. And obviously this, our weekly podcast, and like, we've got a bunch of stuff that we want to start doing in 2023. I think we've mentioned before we are looking to do some writers retreats and things like that. So we have lots of ideas of things that we really want to collaborate on, and that all came out of this. Literally was our transformation from being betrayed by people in our lives that we had cared about, that had broken our hearts, that had left us feeling alone, or unworthy, or just generally feeling like the world was falling apart and that things weren't as we expected, and questioning a lot of things, and really actually transforming it by working through and healing our wounds, but also then by collaborating together and rebuilding that trust together. So it's been a super, super fun, sometimes super fun with heavy sarcasm journey, sometimes super fun because it actually is super fun. And I think it's really important to, to make it really clear that for us, that hasn't just been a collaborative thing, but it has helped us obviously, like, literally build our business. It's something that we've been doing, not just because it's super fun to have a weekly podcast together and let's just chat for a couple of hours about writing and publishing, but also because, obviously we're doing this because it's something that we're passionate about, but it's something that we want to do to impact other women. It's something that we want to do to impact ourselves, like to make our own lives better. It's something that we are invested in because we feel passionately about the whole thing. So, or at least that's how I feel, right?
Yeah. So, like I said, everything is just so interconnected, and like the thing with the trust and working through that, and working through the fact that I have been betrayed many times by many people that were supposed to support me, right? That they were just supposed to. They weren't supposed to betray me, right? But they did. And working through that, and trusting you to the point where, like, I could relinquish some sort of creative control and just control in general, right? Because that's another thing for me, is like trusting, letting go of control, right? So by being able to do that, and being able for us to collaborate and create something together that is then going to impact however many, again, we don't know how far that ripple goes when we actually put books together and put it out there in the world. We know by however many authors that we have, but how far that's going, we don't know. So for us to be able to collaborate, and then everything that continues to come from that, it's like it just feeds right back into continuing to heal more and more wounds as we work together and as we continue to create. So truthfully, that's like, okay, but all that everybody else is talking about is like growing your business by becoming a best-selling author, or growing your business by a book funnel, or whatever it is. And it's like, all of those things are great, but literally, like, working on the wounds and then allowing whatever comes from that to actually grow your business, it's like exponential.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm extremely passionate about us helping women build this aligned legacy through healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have all that other stuff. We have all that other stuff. We have the strategy. We have all of that stuff, but it doesn't do any good if you got all the shit that's underneath, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, we are taking a slightly different tack this time, rather than pushing the whole, like, come and join us if you want to become a best-selling author. I mean, yes, we absolutely will be doing best-selling author launch campaigns on, when the book comes out, but that's actually not the most important thing. Like, it is important, and it's definitely a part of it, and it's really nice to have. But after launch day, the most important thing is, how do you get to use the book? How do you get to use it to build your business? How do you get to use it to achieve your other goals and dreams that you have? Like, how does it get to be a vehicle for that? And part of that is the strategy, but part of it is you actually being able to show up and implement that strategy because you
Yeah.
feel safe to actually show up and do the things and be seen and be successful and charge what you're worth and do all of the things that you really deserve, actually, as a business owner.
Yeah, that's the key, is like, yeah, using the book, right? But we are the ones using the book. So we are the ones that need to be able to leverage the book. Like, the book isn't just going to do it itself, right? We have to actually have the ability to follow the strategies, or to put ourselves out there, or to continue to be vulnerable, or continue to feel worthy. Right. So yes, we need to leverage the book, but it's us. We are the thing that is most important. Right. It's not the bestseller status. That alone isn't going to do shit for you. Truly. It really isn't. Like, having the badge is not going to do anything. Like, we are still the ones that need to utilize and leverage the badge, and leverage the fact that we are bestsellers. Like, the bestseller thing doesn't mean anything if we are not able to then do something about it, right?
Absolutely. I just want to point out here, Jenny, and I've said this before, but probably not for a few weeks. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat this for you. Like, we're here to tell it like it is. And like,
a conversation like just you and I would be having, but everybody, the entire world needs to see.
So welcome to our world.
Oh, yeah.
But what you're saying is exactly true. Like, anybody who is willing to do probably 5 minutes worth of Googling can work out how to become a best-selling author on Amazon. I'm just going to put that out there. Like, if you want to learn how to do it, join the Women Writing Intentionally Collective Facebook group and come and ask us. Like, just, come and join our group and ask us how to do it. And we can point you towards some resources if you're self-publishing, because it does take work. I'm not going to pretend it is not like post it on social media and boom, best-selling author. It actually does take a little bit more than that, but it isn't rocket science. I'm just going to put it out there. It's not rocket science. And it's something that, it is nice to have. It is nice to be able to write it in your bio. But again, like Jenny said, on its own, it is not going to magically make you make money in your business just because you can say that you're an international best-selling author. Sorry, guys, just telling it like it is. What it will do, though, is if you know how to leverage that and you are willing to step up and you are willing to use it, it will open doors for you.
Yep.
If you want to land podcast interviews and you want to get media features and you want to actually show up because you've healed your wounds and you are totally willing and ready to do that, yes, it's going to open doors for you. Yes, it's going to be a tool in your toolbox, right? But you need to be able to take that and know what to do with it and be willing and prepared to do something with it. And that is where this healing comes in. That is where the strategy comes in. That is where it is so important for us to be providing a safe container for women to actually come together and really allow themselves to do this healing so that you are ready as a business owner to build that aligned legacy and portfolio as you step up into the woman that you want to be, into the woman you have dreamed of becoming, into the business owner that you deserve to be, so that you can show up in the world and make the impact that you're here to create. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think that, like what we were just talking about, like having the bestseller, the bestseller badge and being a best-selling author. It's an amazing accomplishment, right? 100%. But then how are you actually using that? And I think that for so many people, they don't even know how to utilize that, right? They don't know how, they don't have that strategy. So they write the book and they're a part of this container and they get published, and then it kind of fizzles out. We talk about this a lot, right? It just kind of fizzles out because they don't know what to do to continue to leverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part of it. But then it's like, okay, if you have the strategy and the publisher, whoever you're working with provides you the strategy and then you don't execute it, and it's like the typical response, the typical answer, just kind of like what's normal, is that it's the mindset issue, that there's a scarcity mindset, or you have imposter syndrome, or you have these things, and okay, we need to work on your mindset and we need to create this abundant mindset, right? Okay. But there's also a reason why you have those issues, right? There's a reason why you have a scarcity mindset. There's a reason why you have imposter syndrome. Like there's a layer underneath that, that for us women, it points back to these wounds, right? And so it's like each of those two things are a layer deep, right? Like, okay, first the strategy, like, okay, I'm a bestseller, but I don't have the strategy. Okay, we got to get you the strategy. Okay, well, the strategy, I can't do the strategy. Why can't you do the strategy? Okay, it's mindset, right? But there's something underneath that even deeper, and that's what we're trying to bring to light, and that's what we are doing in these containers, is this additional layer that so many women actually don't even know is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so one of our comments that just came through was about needing to dive into the messages that were taught that ended up with being a married mother at 18, right? Because it is these things, like so much of it comes back to conditioning about what we're expected to do, how we're expected to show up in the world, what not just the expectations of us as women, but what we are allowed to say, what we are allowed to want, who we are allowed to be. And, it can take a lot of work and a lot of digging to actually uncover those deeper layers, like Jenny was just saying. And, the layers that come from being exhausted and burning out as well. Like that's a huge one that women entrepreneurs really struggle with, is this burnout that comes from hustling and grinding constantly, because there is that feeling of not being enough, and like it's because it's layering all of the things, the fear of failure and the fear of success, like on top of each other, and the fear of being visible, but the need to show up and feel like you're on the hamster wheel, because if you're not doing those things, then you're not going to make any money, and if you don't have the strategy, and if you don't do this, and it gets overwhelming. Right? The voices are like a whirlwind in your head constantly. And it's unsustainable. And at the end of the day, these are the things that end up with women walking away from their businesses and the things that they're passionate about, not because their businesses weren't good, not because they weren't brilliant at what they were doing, but it's all of the other pieces that just end up leaving you feeling burnt out or leave you feeling like you were just too inadequate or that you weren't being consistent for doing the things and you couldn't make the money and because you couldn't charge enough because you had to be there to help everybody rather than being selective in any way, shape or form, because we're taught that we need to be affordable and help everybody because we shouldn't turn anybody away, right? We should be grateful for whoever wants to work with us as well and take on the toxic clients, because we should just take anybody that knocks on our door and says, here, let me throw some money at you. We should just be grateful for what we're given. Has anybody else ever heard that phrase? You should be grateful, you get what you're given. So it's all of these things, all of these thoughts, all of these beliefs as well that we kind of need to unravel and unwind, ladies. Gotta let them go because they're really not helping any of us. So, yeah, we're here for it.
It's like I just keep going back. I just keep going in my head. It's like I just keep going back to all of these. No, not to knock any of it, but just all of the like 6-figure mindset, like messaging that you see out there, right? 6-figure mindset and that kind of stuff. It's like, yes, but right? Like there is also more to this than just your mindset. And I think that it's just so important that we're bringing it to light and that we're letting people know that they can grow their business, that we're letting women know that they could grow their business in a safe space, by writing, by going through the process, by contributing, and then being able to heal in the process. And it's not just so black and white. There's so many layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's not black and white at all. It is well more than 50 shades of gray, let me just say. But yeah, I think the thing I would love anybody who is listening today to take away with them is that whether or not you decide to join this container with us, please consider how these wounds are actually impacting you and really, take the time to do some research and dive into them and, find somebody that you do feel safe working with in some way, shape or form, because it is always the journey is different when you're not doing it alone. And so, if you feel unsafe to be seen, I highly recommend finding a circle of women who will support you and love you no matter what and be there to cheerlead you. And I just want to shout out, because I know who you are who wrote this. I know Facebook's not showing me who it is, but I know who wrote this. And I love you. And I'm here for you. And I just want you to know that. So I'm just putting that out there.
Well,
okay. Yeah. So, ladies, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please do, if you're catching the replay, leave us some comments and we'll get back to you. If you would like to find out more about Betrayed and the Wounded Women series, please do check out www.womenwritingintentionally.com, and you can find all of the information about the series like the whole series as well as the individual titles. If you would like to be a part of any of the titles, please do submit an application. As Jenny and I have mentioned before, there are early bird pricing available on each of the different levels, and they're for each of the different books as well. So if one title appeals to you more than the others, do put your application in, because if you're one of the first 3 people in each of the categories for each of the books, you will get special pricing on that. And we would love to have you come on board and share your stories. And we would love to help you heal the wounds. We would love to have you as part of our container, because we really do feel like this is something important. And we really want to be able to put our ripple out into the world and help heal the collective by helping you guys heal yourselves. So if you're ready to step up and do your healing and write your stories and share it with the world, then we would love to have you. So, any final words, Jen? No,
Not
we've said it
okay.
all.
I've said it all. I've maybe said too much, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, we don't sugarcoat it here, guys, and that's why you love us. That's why you keep coming back, right? If you have any questions, do feel free to contact us directly. And we'll be back again next Monday. So we will see you then. Loads of love, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us, and we will talk again soon.